As ever, we'll be starting with the hook. So it's a pick and pass card drafting game where the cards you select dictate grid coordinates. You place tokens onto these spaces to claim territory, and the player who most effectively dominates the board wins the game. Now that sounds fascinating. I'm not sure I've come across another game featuring a clever hybrid of card drafting and area control like this. But how are we going to communicate all of that to players? It's a bit of a mouthful, but with bunnies. Bunnies? Yeah, bunnies everywhere. Like cute little bunnies. No, warmongering, murderous bunnies. Okay, so not like cute little pink fluffy bunnies. Yeah, they're still pink. Pink, fluffy, warmongering, murderous bunnies. That's the hook. I'm Adam Porter and I design games, and in this video series I'm looking at board games and reviewing them with a focus on product design. I will be discussing gameplay too, so you should be able to get an idea of whether the game might work for you. In this video I thought it would be interesting to objectively analyse the design of a board game that I love. Bunny Kingdom's in my top 5 games of all time. But just because it works for me doesn't necessarily mean that it's a great product. So let's unpick it. Bunny Kingdom is a 2017 collaboration between Magic the Gathering creator Richard Garfield and the esteemed French board game publisher Iello. It can be played by 2 to 4 players, or 5 with the expansion, in around an hour. In Bunny Kingdom, each player is trying to establish their own little domains on a large grid board, and the aim is to create interconnected areas of bunnies of your own colour, with plenty of towers and resources, so that's carrots, wood, fish and other materials. Each player has a hand of cards, they select 2 to play, and they pass the rest to the opponent on their left. This continues until all the cards have been played, and then the round is scored. And after 4 complete rounds, the game ends, and players add in points from special objectives they've gathered throughout the game. The highest scorer wins. Most of the cards feature a single grid coordinate, and when you play the card, you place your bunny into that space. Some of the spaces have cities on them, and these are the key to building your empire, because the towers in those cities translate into points. Some of the cards provide you with additional cities, which you can place onto any of your occupied territories. These might have 1, 2 or 3 towers in them. And many of the cards are parchments, endgame scoring objectives. Gather lots of fish, or spread out to create lots of small domains, or place your bunnies on the edge of the board. And then there are a host of special cards which allow you to add unique resources to your territories, or join up different domains using sky towers, or camp out in unoccupied spaces, or draw and play additional cards. At the end of each round, you score points for each domain equal to the number of towers in it, multiplied by the number of different resources in it. And in the first couple of rounds, scoring is generally pretty modest, but it ramps up massively in rounds 3 and 4 as you build on the foundations you laid down in those early turns. But this in-game scoring only tells part of the story, because the big reveal of the secret objectives at game end will ultimately determine the victor. Now, first impressions count for a lot, and this is where I think Iello has made a really bold decision. On the basis of its cover alone, Bunny Kingdom could be dismissed as a game for young children, which it most definitely isn't. Iello is gambling on the designer's name, word of mouth and their own reputation to ensure that gamers don't walk on by, to ensure that they stop, they check the back of the box, identify the unique gameplay mechanisms, recognise the complexity and give it a chance. But what's the alternative? I mean, can we keep on churning out box covers like this time and time again? How are we supposed to stand apart? Well, Iello took a punt on cute little woodland critters, and it's a trend which continued over subsequent years with complex games like Root and Everdell using the same formula. That said, even in comparison to the very cute Everdell and Root, Bunny Kingdom is sickly sweet. I mean, the game is awash with pastel colours. The bunnies are adorable sat atop their little castles adorned with carrot-shaped steeples. The expansion doubles down on that sugar rush aesthetic. Rainbows, beanstalks, cities in the clouds. Iello is challenging you to bring this out with your gamer mates, to expand their horizons. Stick this on the table between games of Gloomhaven and Kingdom Death Monster. I dare you. Now, every game makes promises with its box cover, and Bunny Kingdom is all over the place. I'm expecting pastel colours looking at that cover. I'm expecting cute artwork and really good table presence. And yeah, it delivers on all those things. But then I see Richard Garfield's name. Now I'm expecting clever gameplay mechanisms, a degree of complexity, lots of interaction. And again, it really delivers. But what if I don't know who Richard Garfield is? What if I don't bother to fully read the back of the box? I can only imagine that this game is sitting at the bottom of some sad child's wardrobe, neglected after a baffling first attempt at playing the game, an ill-informed Christmas gift from a well-meaning grandparent. Fortunately, I don't need to worry about all of that because I bought the game for, well, me. I thought it might appeal to my wife, and it did. I mean, it really, really did. This was the first modern game that my wife really fell for. The first time I really, truly managed to convince her that there was a world of games beyond Monopoly and Cluedo. We've played this game an absolute ton. After 4 years, it's probably the most played game in my collection, and we both still adore it. Here's my customer journey map. When I first heard about the game, I thought it sounded fun. When I got my hands on it and opened the box, I was amazed at what it contained. It wasn't the easiest game to learn, and setting it up was a bit of a pain with all of those pieces, but the gameplay was really fascinating. There were so many options on your turn, loads of different strategies to explore, loads of neat decisions to be made. Now, I have seen players struggle with the game, overwhelmed by all the choices available to them. You really do need to assess each card in your hand individually, check out the grid coordinates, consider whether it's worth anything to your opponents, and compare the value of your different options. It's a lot to take in, so the game isn't going to be for everyone. The scoring at the end of the game takes a little bit longer than I'd like, as players reveal their parchment objectives one by one and count up their bunnies on the board. It is exciting waiting to reveal the ultimate victor, but it can drag a little. So if we chart pain points for Bunny Kingdom, it's the fiddly setup, the potential for analysis paralysis, and extended waits for players to pick the cards they want to play, and the long endgame scoring. But for me, the highs far outweigh the lows. As always, I'm going to use my engagement star and ladder model to analyse the gameplay. So these are the 5 key facets which pull me into a game, and I'm going to give each of them a score between 0 and 3. If a game scores more than 10 points, that's usually an indication that it's a real winner. It reaches the top of my engagement ladder, and Bunny Kingdom succeeds. I've given it 2s across the board. It is really rare to find such a well-rounded game. Yes, the theme makes very little sense, but the extensive and beautiful artwork on the cards, along with the lovely components, can't help but draw you into this gorgeous little world. The interactions are really gripping. You have to keep an eye on your opponents and block their opportunities if you want to win. There's a high degree of tension, challenge and stress in the game, waiting for an opportunity to fill that final space, to connect up your territories, praying to receive that one fish which will complete your objective in the final round of the game. The feedback isn't continuous, but the scoring occurs at 4 different points in the game, and the pacing feels just about right. It's really satisfying to see your score ramp up between rounds. So 6 points in round 1, 15 in round 2, 40 in round 3, 80 in round 4. There's a real sense of momentum. And I've already stressed just how many great choices there are to make in the game. I should say that I've primarily played 2-player, though I have plenty of larger games under my belt too. My wife and I frequently play this as a head-to-head, and it's a very different game at that player count. The rules even change slightly. Now we each have our own deck of cards, and as well as passing cards between us, on each turn we draw a card from the deck and discard a card from our hand. It's an ingenious system which replicates the experience of pick and pass drafting really well. It ramps up the negative interaction in the game. The discarded card is always going to be chosen to deprive your opponent. So you consistently choose one card to benefit yourself and one card to block the other player. This might not be to everyone's tastes, and even after years of frequent playing, we still get out of sync with all the passing of cards, the drawing of cards, playing and discarding. As clever as it is, it's not a streamlined system. Now personally, I wouldn't change it. It works for us, as long as we stay focused. The game currently has 1 expansion, which didn't take the obvious route of exploring underground realms, with bunnies being burrowing creatures and all. Instead, we have bunnies in the sky. And why not? I mean, it adds some clever new strategies, opportunities for a 5th player, new scoring options, and a second board. It's a fairly complex edition, and I wouldn't recommend it with new players, and it's a pain to separate the cards out of the massive deck when you want to return to play in the base game alone. So for us, it's an occasional diversion. We still frequently return to play in the base game on its own, leaving the expansion on the shelf. but I'm glad that the option exists. Indeed, I really wished Iello would produce a second expansion. Bunnies Underground or Bunnies at Sea. To be honest, I just want the experience of opening up the package, the excitement of checking out the artwork on all the cards, exploring the new rule set all over again, even if it rarely gets played. A great product grows with its user, and whether you're using expansions to add variety or just trying to perfect your skills at the base game, there's always a new challenge in every session of Bunny Kingdom. Now, my wife wins every single time, but it's usually close, and that little hint of a potential victory, one day maybe I might beat her, that keeps me coming back. So moving on to my product design checklist. Number 1, is the game innovative? Yeah, I mean the combination of grid-based area control and pick and pass card drafting is unusual, perhaps even unique. Both have been used many times independently in other games, so Seven Wonders, Sushi Go, Tigris and Euphrates, Kingdom Builder, but the combination here feels fresh. And the presentation of the product is certainly a bold move, an innovative marketing strategy perhaps. So number 2, does it solve a need? Well, need is a strong word, but I do think in 2017 when this was released, gamers were looking for a next step from Seven Wonders and Sushi Go. Pick and pass card drafting is such an elegant mechanism, it can easily form part of a bigger game, and Bunny Kingdom is just such a product. I can't see that many players were crying out for a pastel rabbit strategy game, but now I have it, I wouldn't want to be without it. Number 3, branding. Well, there are opportunities here. Bunny Kingdom is a great title for a game. The art style and the world building are immaculate. I'm surprised that we haven't seen a Bunny Kingdom card game, more expansions, perhaps a standalone sequel, a dice game, a roll and write. It's a distinctive world which could be as iconic for Iello as Garfield's other big hit, King of Tokyo, which frequently gets repackaged and reworked into sequels and expansions. Card drafting, area control, pink, fluffy, warmongering bunnies. So how strong a hook is that? Well, to generate commercial success, a product needs to have a great core concept and outstanding execution. So let's plot Bunny Kingdom onto my chart. I think commercially speaking, the idea is good, but not exceptional. As ingenious as Richard Garfield's concept is, it is a bit of a tricky one to convey to players. But it's extremely well executed. The presentation is top-notch. I have very few games this beautiful in my collection. The rulebook is accessible and welcoming. My only hesitation with the execution is the potential for consumer and retailer confusion. So is this a game for kids, or is it for gamers? And hence, the game sits on the border of green and yellow. This represents a really successful product, but it hasn't quite pushed up into the orange or red section of the grid. It's not going to trouble Ticket to Ride or Codenames or Azul. I doubt it has the commercial value of its stablemate King of Tokyo. Nonetheless, it is one of my favourite games. My wife and I love it. And if you're open to a serious strategy game in a silly woodland world, then I think you'll love it too. If you'd like to see more videos like this, please hit like, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you next time.